Hi, I'm Dustin Blitchak, a reporter at Benzinga.com. I'm here with Alessandro Dinello. He's the CEO of Flagstar Bank, one of the largest banks in the Midwest and publicly traded, based in Metro Detroit. And Sandro came down today to visit the Benzinga newsroom and talk to us about the bank's story and some of the partnerships they've made in the city of Detroit. So, Sandro, thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, my pleasure. Happy to be here.
Thank you. You've been at the bank for almost 40 years.
That's right, 38 years.
Well, how'd you get into the business, and how'd you get to where you are now?
Well, I started out of college as a bank examiner, and I did that for 3 years, and that introduced me to a lot of people in the banking business. And I got offered a job at a small bank in Jackson, which was the last place I ever thought I would live, but we ended up going there for the job, thought we'd be there a couple of years, and we ended up being there 32 years. Raised our kids there, but it was a great experience, and kind of rose up in that bank and eventually became the president of that bank. And then that bank merged with another company that formed Flagstar. That was in '94. And then I ran the banking operation for the company for a long time, and then became CEO almost 5 years ago.
Now, you and I have met before, and I remember that when you became CEO, probably a mixed blessing because it was during a difficult year. Is that safe to say? Because the bank was coming out of the financial crisis.
Yes, the bank had a very difficult time during the financial crisis. Although we had many years of significant profitability, we were in the mortgage business. And the mortgage business and the real estate business, as you well know, took a big hit in the financial crisis. And we didn't have enough capital, we didn't have enough liquidity. We had to go outside and raise capital. Even after doing that, the difficulties in the mortgage business lingered for a number of years. And so when I was given the opportunity to become CEO, I was very happy to take that on. But as you say, it was a mixed blessing because it was very, very challenging. And only a few of us really understand just how challenging it was and how many obstacles we had to overcome to get the company in the position that it's in today.
And you took capital, you took TARP funds from the federal government, your private equity investment, but managed to hang on to your name and no mergers or acquisitions. So that's not true of some Michigan banks. There were some that didn't make it.
We're the only national thrift lender that actually made it through the crisis, got recapitalized, and is still independent. So we're pretty proud of that. And we think that Michigan needs a very strong Michigan-based bank. If you think about the big banks, think about Ohio, KeyBank, Fifth Third, Huntington,
all based there.
All based there. And we don't have anybody that's of that significance. So that's what we want to be, and that's what we're working towards.
Your business has changed since that time, I think, because you, as you said, were very dependent on mortgages at the time. It looks to me, just watching from the outside, like Flagstar has really been working on its consumer side at the time that you've been
consumer and business, yes. Okay. So we've diversified the company very significantly. Now we're still a very significant mortgage lender nationally. Amongst banks, we're the 5th largest in the country. If you add all mortgage lenders, we're about the 11th largest in the country. So still a very significant business. But what's changed is now we have, as you said, a much more significant consumer business and a very significant commercial business. So in Michigan, Southeast Michigan, and with a number of our business lines that are national, we've grown the banking revenue in the company very substantially. It used to be that 90% of revenue from Flagstar came from the mortgage business. Now it's like 60%. And we're moving towards a 50-50 split, which the marketplace values bank revenue at 3-to-1 compared to mortgage revenue.
Didn't know that.
Yeah, so from a price to earnings point of view, it's really important that we continue to make this transition. If you look at the best mortgage companies in the public sector, they trade at about 6 times earnings. Banks, on the other hand, trade at more like 18 times earnings. We trade in the middle, 12, 13 times earnings. And the reason is we're kind of a hybrid.
So Flagstar Bank, for those who don't know, was just recently in the news because they signed on as the jersey sponsor for the Detroit Pistons. And the Detroit Pistons are moving downtown in, I think, a month, from the Palace of Auburn Hills in the suburbs back to the city of Detroit, and they have not played here since, I think, the 1970s. One of the things you said at that announcement, you were there with Stan Van Gundy and Artella.
Yes.
And you said that one of the reasons you wanted to do this and have the Flagstar brand on the Pistons was because of the visibility of it to a national audience. And I was wondering, I just wanted to go a little bit deeper on that. Are you trying to, are there certain parts of the country where you're more visible or where you're trying to become more visible to consumers?
So in California, as an example, which is where the second most source of revenue for Flagstar is Michigan, of course, is number one, and California is number two. We do business all up and down the state of California, and we did an acquisition of a mortgage originator earlier this year that's headquartered in the San Francisco Bay Area, El Alto area, and they go all the way from LA up to Seattle. So that's an example of the reach of Flagstar. So if you go to California, people in the mortgage business know Flagstar.
It's like it
people
is
in the
here.
banking business don't, but in the mortgage business they do. So this helps us take our brand and expand it. But it's also very important right here because we haven't been a banking force for a long time. So when people think about banks in Southeast Michigan, they don't always think about Flagstar. They think about others. I don't want to mention their names, but they think about others. So we wanted to start thinking about Flagstar. And the partnership with the Pistons is good in a number of ways. Number one, this is new, right? The whole jersey sponsorship thing.
In the NBA,
it's in the NBA, it's first year, and there's very significant companies that have made this commitment. Harley Davidson just did with the Milwaukee Bucks, and I think there's Goodyear that did it with Cleveland Cavaliers. So big companies, Disney with the Orlando Magic. So this is no little thing. It's a big, big commitment. The other thing that's really cool about it is the Pistons and the Palace Sports Entertainment organization is very committed to this community. I'm sure you guys have heard of it. They're doing all kinds of things. And I've gotten to know Arn very well since he first came to Detroit a few years ago. And, I want to work with them and do more and more community support type events.
I bet you travel more than I do. And
every week I go somewhere.
So
I'll be in New York tomorrow.
So what is the view of Detroit now in the financial sector? When you go to Manhattan, because we're talking about a national, this team's coming back downtown. Do people ask you a lot about Detroit's development?
Yeah, it really has changed. I would say 4 or 5 years ago when I would go to CEO conferences and people say, where are you headquartered? And I'd say outside Detroit, and they would go, ooh. And now they're like, oh, we hear there's great things going on in Detroit. So the word has finally spread, and we could talk more confidently about it too, right? As Detroiters, we don't have to make anything up. We can actually just talk the truth.
Right, or plead the fifth. Yeah. All right, well, listen, I don't want to throw a bucket of cold water on this conversation by invoking Donald Trump, but I do.
You're going to.
I'm going to. I do want to ask you about what your takeaway is on Dodd-Frank and the discussions that are happening in Congress right now about possibly rolling it back. I know we're seeing legislation that might change the stress tests, it might change the capital requirements, and it might change the amount of fraud regulations that banks have to follow. So how has Dodd-Frank affected Flagstar, and what's your thought process on it maybe being rolled back?
Well, first of all, I don't think there's any chance that Dodd-Frank would be rolled back. I think there's a chance that there could be pieces of it that are modified.
Okay.
And I don't think Dodd-Frank should be rolled back. I think the law itself is fine. I think the regulations that have been promulgated in some cases are not so fine. And it's sort of typical overreaction. Right? First we're too soft, and then we're too tough. And we need to find a middle ground that makes sense, that allows businesses to do business, provide support to communities, to people, to companies, to businesses, without feeling like they have these handcuffs on. And today that's the problem, is that it's just gone a little bit too far. And those things that you just talked about or mentioned, like stress testing, we all do stress testing.
Right.
Should we have to do it the way the Fed says to do it? Are those the right assumptions to use? Or should we figure out what are the right assumptions for Flagstar? And then the Fed can come in and examine us and determine whether we're doing things in the right fashion or not.
And you're talking about the things that would really speak to the health of your business.
Absolutely.
Okay.
No two companies are exactly the same. And they're trying to make everybody the same, and regardless of size. So we have the same stress test requirements of a very large bank. doesn't make sense. You know, our business is different. And so I think there just needs to be, there's always unintended consequences. And this was a major legislation. And there's been many regulations that are promulgated as a result of it. There's always going to be unintended consequences. And, you know, when I speak privately to congressmen and senators, they all acknowledge that. But they're not able to come together and work out compromises. That's the gridlock that we have in Washington today.
What's another change that you would like to see? So you're saying the stress test could be modified. I know a lot of banks got together recently. I want to say Goldman Sachs was leading the charge, and I think that one of their main complaints about Dodd-Frank were a lot of the reporting requirements for fraud, for the caps on what transactions have to be reported. Does that cost you a lot of money or a lot of staff in order to follow it?
So there's a good chance that if something really bothers Goldman Sachs, probably the big we're in a different place. But there are some things relative. You mentioned capital standard. There are some limitations and some issues within the Basel III report that negatively impact those of us that are big mortgage lenders.
Okay.
So there's tweaks that I think could be done that wouldn't cause any undue risk to the financial system, but that would make it a little bit easier to do business.
Okay. I recently met Tim Ryan from Pricewaterhouse, and we talked about the CEO Council for Diversity and Inclusion, and you signed on to that. How important is that to you in your leadership role to work on diversity in the workplace, and what's Flagstar doing to that end?
So we've had a diversity and inclusion program, if you will, in place for a while. So we saw the need to be very open and educational with our own company,
right,
about the importance of being a reflection of your community and being open-minded in the way you think. And I think that most of us, including myself, probably didn't even realize or understand what diversity and inclusion really meant. And so we brought a consultant in, we put all of our management people through the right kind of training to really understand the sensitivities involved in it. And so we want to make sure that when we have open positions in our company, that our HR team is putting a broad base of people in front of decision makers who are hiring people, so that we do become a reflection of the community
that you serve.
That we serve.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. And you don't change that overnight, but you make sure that right from the top, there's a commitment. That's who we're going to be. And so we do things for veterans. We do things for African Americans. We do things for women. We do things for the LGBT community. I mean, we have these support groups internally that are led by people that have a particular interest in that group. And then we spread that word that group has an interest into the entire Flagstar nation, if you will.
And that probably, as a boss, helps you navigate these waters we're in right now. Because this is a time where you can't ignore politics, and your employees are watching the same things that everyone else is.
You can't ignore politics, but I've never been one to use my position to get involved in my personal political feelings. But I think as a company, and especially a financial institution, that relies on the community for its livelihood, for its business, that we've got to give back to the community. And so that goes to the things you were talking about earlier, like the Strand, but also to the people of the community, right? To be broad-based support for everybody in the community. We can't be all things to everybody, right? But we can be fair and honest and open and diverse and inclusive with everybody.
Well, on that note, I think we should wrap it up. This has been a great conversation, and we look forward to what you do next. Anything I forgot to ask you about what Flagstar is doing this year, about what the future holds for the company?
Well, I think you mentioned our symbol is FBC. If you didn't, I'll re-mention it. And so all of you smart investors out there, you should go buy FBC. Don't take that as a recommendation, please.
Thanks for coming to Benzinga. It's a pleasure. Thank you.